this is just a pure academic work. Are you okay with me? So, and I hope and I believe, as mature as we are, MPhil accounting students, we are prepared for the short session we're going to have. So I'll leave it with Anaya to take over.
So the aim for this debate is not to get a winner. No. I know both teams are going to bring very strong points, but we are looking at getting different perspectives. Everyone is a winner.
All right. So my name is UPSA MPhil, and I stand before you to strongly support the motion that the government should reassess the 25% and 50% income tax incentives which are granted to businesses operating the 2 and 3 shifts under the 24-hour economy and accelerated export development program. Why? This is because while the intention behind this incentive is, yes, it is novel, that is to encourage continuous production and then job creation, but the design, the logic and that of the fiscal impact of these incentives is totally flawed, and then it is basically unsustainable. Our first point is the incentives are not basically linked to productivity or job creation. Why? They reward process and not the results. According to the page 11 of the CPS report, shift patterns alone do not constitute a sufficient basis for determining eligibility for tax subsidies. So let's unpack that. A company could run 3 shifts without increasing output or employment. It might just decide to rearrange its existing workforce into different time slots. Yet, under the current policy, it still qualifies for the 25% and 50% tax rebate. That means that the government is basically losing more revenue without even gaining any meaningful impact. We are not basically incentivizing growth, but basically we are just subsidizing the routine operations. So ladies and gentlemen, if we are serious about building a result-driven 24-hour economy, incentives must be performance-based and not presence-based. So our second point is the tax basically breaks or it poses a serious fiscal risk in the Ghana's current economic climate. According to the CPS review, it made it clear that Ghana's public investment is already in decline, averaging just 2.8% of the GDP over the past decade and expected to even fall better. So in that context, granting broad automatic tax rebates to thousands of firms regardless of their actual economic contribution is basically fiscally reckless. Now, as the CPS team warns us, poorly structured incentives risk inefficiency and revenue loss. In plain terms, we can't afford to give money that we don't even have. So a reassessment doesn't mean we are saying you should abolish it. No. But it means that you have to restructure them so that they are strategic, they are targeted, and then they are sustainable. So our third point is Ghana needs smarter, not basically larger incentives.
Okay, so like he rightly said that in his argument that provision have not been made, I want to put it to him that provision have been made by the policy. When you look at the 24-hour policy, there has been a provision for funding which reads that an increase between 0.10 and then 0.25% on existing 0.75% exempt levy on affected imported finished products, imposition of excise levy on selected products within the value chain, and then there will be strict enforcement of valuation compliance measures on products within the valuation chain. The levies that will be imposed on A and B will be imposed on imported finished products in the sectors where Ghana has a clear potential for local substitution. So meaning with these impositions that will be made on this high level end products, government can get the money from that sector to help with wherever the loss of incentives or tax will be to boost the economy.
We are not saying that this particular incentives should not be granted to these particular companies running these ships. It has to be given. But it should not be based on these particular ships they are running. It should be based on, okay, yes, you are running the shift. Are you increasing your productivity? That is the question. Can we verify that, yes, you created what? Additional employment? That is basically the question we are asking here. If there is verifiability that yes, there is job creation, then you can be granted. So that's why we are saying it should not be based on the presence. It should be based on what? The performance.
In my submission earlier on, I have made mention that it promotes continuous industrial production and productivity. Okay, so in the quest to reassess, for example, let's look at the International Labour Organization, which says that multi-shift production models can substantially improve total factor productivity and optimize resource utilization, whereas when supported with enabling fiscal policies. Okay, so if I'm giving you a 25% and 50% incentive respectively, are you arguing that it will not give counterproductivity? Are you trying to say that it will not increase productivity? It is just people putting people in the offices to run 24 hours and it doesn't make any sense. Again, I want to say that his point is flawed because the creation of jobs, apart from the creation of jobs, this policy would also seek to reduce poverty in the sense that it has a strong employment and social inclusion implication. Social shift operation inherently require additional labor to sustain production and productivity.
We are still back to the question. Now, if we are able to verify and then identify these companies that will be incurring these expenditures at the long run, we'll be able to provide for them as well. Now, if there is a company that does not need to convey its employees to the workplace, and then there is one that needs to convey its employees to the workplace, who among them should be given maybe the greater part of the incentive? Do you get it?
Essentially, she said if they get it. So when they get this 25 and 50% tax incentive, invariably it's going to come back to them in the form of money. So if a private company has to run the shift system and they are incapacitated in getting their employees buses, this 25 and 50% tax incentives you give to them can also give them this car to buy these vehicles to convey this stuff to work.
You are saying the same thing that she said.
Yes, so
it's like the same thing.
It's
why can't you
verifiability
verify?
reassessment.
Before
It's verifiability
I
reassessment.
So the team,
Verifiability is not reassessment.
I just have a separate question from what we are discussing. We know giving tax incentives is a debt or a loss to the country. Now, if we say we should give tax incentive to these companies, the country will be losing. Where will Ghana now get funds to support these companies that we are giving the tax incentives to? That's the question bothering my mind.
I think today we've all experienced how difficult it is to be a policymaker, because you listen to one side and you're like, I saw some people nodding, clapping, then the next time these people spoke, they're also nodding and clapping at the same time, and I'm like, where do you stand? Because it seems like you are shifting sides, but this is the importance of some of these things, right? It helps you to think that there are benefits and there are pros and cons, let me say, to everything, every decision that you decide to take, right? And that's the kind of some of the reflections that are coming out of this.
You know, in policy formulation, there is no corner solution. In other words, there's no extreme position. When you take an extreme position, you always miss the point. So we do what we call optimization. So what do you say? I say A, we take part of the A. What do you say? I say B, we take part of the B, we mix it. As CPS, we have interest in the skills development of young men and women. We just started, we are just less than a year, but 2 months, 3 months old, and we are doing a lot at the center. But we also want to thank you so much, and your professor, for availing yourselves for this debate. At the end of the day, we all want the best for the country. And I was so intrigued about the way you debated, the way you argued your points. All right. So what I came to see here, what I came to hear even though I came late. I've heard a lot. I know you spoke a lot before I arrived. But this shows that Ghana has a future. We have only one Ghana, and let's build a nation for ourselves. I am so passionate about these things, the development of the young men and women. So let's all come together, share ideas as we have done, and keep Ghana in mind. Nobody will build a country for us. Yes, I thank you so much for the opportunity.